What kind of daughter calls her mother too old to matter? I stood frozen in my own living room, the hum of Paige's live stream echoing from her laptop. Her voice, sharp and careless, cut through the air like a knife. She's old. She won't even notice if a few things disappear. My heart pounded, a dull ache spreading through my chest. I'm Miriam Wallace, 75, a retired nurse who gave everything to raise Paige, a girl I took in from a shelter and put through college. And now? This betrayal. How could she? This is the story of how I turned her cruel words into a lesson she'll never forget, a fight to reclaim my dignity. But at what cost? You'll want to hear this. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. If this story's grabbing you, hit that like button to let us know. Tell us where you're tuning in from. The air in my apartment felt heavy that evening, the faint scent of lavender from my diffuser doing little to calm me. Paige's laptop glowed on the coffee table, her live stream still running. I'd only meant to grab a glass of water, but her words stopped me cold. Too old to matter. Each syllable stung, like a slap I hadn't seen coming. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles whitening, the cold granite grounding me as my mind raced. Had I missed the signs? I'd raised her, loved her like my own, sacrificed years of my life. Was it all for nothing? I remembered the day I met Paige, a skinny 15-year-old with guarded eyes, sitting in the shelter's common room. I'd been a nurse for decades, seen pain in every form, but her quiet defiance struck me. I'll give you a home, I'd promised, my voice steady despite the uncertainty in my heart. Back then, her smile felt like a victory. Now, it felt like a lie. Her voice snapped me back to the present. She's got all that stock money, Paige was saying to her friend, her tone dripping with entitlement. She won't miss a few grand. My breath caught. The stocks, my safety net built over years of careful saving, were they her target? I crept closer, the floorboards creaking under my weight, my pulse loud in my ears. The screen showed Paige, her perfectly styled hair and fake smile, performing for her audience. How long had she been planning this? I sank into the armchair, the worn fabric familiar against my skin. My mind replayed every moment I'd given her. Late nights helping with homework, scraping together tuition money, cheering at her graduation. And now, this. Her words echoed. Too old to matter. Was I? No, I wasn't done yet. A fire sparked inside me, small but fierce. I'd raised her, but I wouldn't let her destroy me. Had I been blind all these years, pouring my heart into someone who'd turn against me? I sat alone in my apartment, the faint glow of a table lamp casting long shadows across the room. Paige's words from the live stream still burned in my mind. She's old. She won't even notice. The sting wasn't just her betrayal. It was the weight of everything I'd given her, now thrown back in my face. How had we gotten here? I needed to retrace the steps to understand where my sacrifices had led us. The answer lay in the past, in the years I'd spent building a life for her. The scent of old coffee lingered in the air, a reminder of countless mornings I'd woken early to make sure Paige had breakfast before school. My hands, still calloused from decades as a head nurse, trembled as I gripped my mug. I'd worked long shifts, the sterile smell of antiseptic clinging to my scrubs, to afford this apartment and her education. Every paycheck was a choice, her future over my comfort. I closed my eyes and the memories flooded back. I was 52 when I took Paige in, a 15-year-old with a chipped front tooth and a glare that dared the world to hurt her. The shelter's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I signed the papers, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. "You're safe now," I told her, my voice soft but firm. She didn't reply, just nodded, her backpack slung over one shoulder. I saw myself in her, stubborn, scarred, but resilient. I'd lost my own daughter years before, a wound that never healed, and Paige felt like a second chance. Back then, our apartment was a sanctuary. I'd come home exhausted, my feet aching from 12-hour shifts, to find Paige sprawled on the couch, textbooks open. "You're going to be something big," I'd say, ruffling her hair. She'd roll her eyes, but her smile was real. I lived for those moments. I took extra shifts to cover her tuition, skipped vacations to buy her books. Once I sold my mother's pearl necklace to pay for her summer art program. The pawn shop's dusty air stung my lungs as I handed it over. But Paige's excited call that night, "Miriam, I learned to paint with oils," made it worth it. Or so I thought. Now, sitting in the dim light, I wondered when her gratitude had faded. Had it been gradual, like a slow leak, or sudden, like a switch flipped? I remembered a moment last year at her college graduation. The auditorium smelled of polished wood and fresh flowers, and I clapped until my palms stung as she crossed the stage. "I did it because of you," she said, hugging me tightly, but her eyes darted away, already distant. Later, at dinner, she barely spoke, scrolling her phone, her laughter reserved for texts from friends. I brushed it off. She was young, busy. But now, her words from the live stream echoed. She won't miss a few grand. Had she been planning this even then? I stood, pacing the hardwood floor, its cool surface grounding me. My mind churned with questions. The stocks she'd mentioned, my nest egg built from years of careful investments, were they her goal all along? I'd shown her my portfolio once, proud of my foresight, explaining how it would keep us secure. She'd nodded, her face unreadable. "Smart," she'd said, but her tone felt hollow. Now I saw it, the seed of her betrayal, planted long ago. "You've done so much," my friend Clara had told me once, over tea in her cluttered kitchen. The memory hit hard, her warm voice, the clink of porcelain cups. "But don't let her take you for granted, Miriam." I'd laughed it off, insisting Paige was different. Now, Clara's warning felt like a prophecy. Paige's success, her sleek apartment, her polished social media, was built on my sacrifices. Yet here I was, too old to matter. The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in with every heartbeat. I stopped by the window, the city lights blurred through a haze of unshed tears. I'd given Paige everything, my time, my love, my security. But for what? To be dismissed, plotted against? A quiet resolve stirred within me, like an ember catching flame. I wasn't just an old woman she could outsmart. I'd survived worse, grief, long nights in the ER, a life of hard choices. If Paige thought I wouldn't notice, she was wrong. How could someone I loved, like my own daughter, betray me so coldly? The question gnawed at me as I sat at my kitchen table, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Paige's words from the live stream, "She's old, she won't even notice," looped in my mind, each repetition tightening the knot in my chest. The dim light from a single bulb cast jagged shadows on the wall, mirroring the chaos inside me. I'd given her everything, but now I saw the truth. She was scheming, manipulating, and I'd been too trusting to see it, but no more. I needed proof, and I needed it now. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, a habit from my nursing days, but it did little to ease the dread pooling in my stomach. I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling as I logged into my bank account. The screen glowed harshly, revealing what I feared. Unauthorized transactions, small but deliberate, siphoning from my savings. My breath hitched. It was her, Paige. The girl I'd raised was stealing from me. I remembered a moment years ago when Paige was 18, sitting across from me at this same table. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread I'd baked to celebrate her first college acceptance letter. "I'll make you proud, Miriam," she'd said, her eyes bright, her hand squeezing mine. I'd believed her, my heart swelling with hope. Now, that memory felt like a cruel joke, her promise a mask for the manipulation to come. I couldn't just sit here. My years as a nurse had taught me to act under pressure, to trust my instincts. I installed a small camera in the living room, hidden behind a photo frame, its lens trained on the desk where I kept my financial papers. The device was cold in my hands, its weight a reminder of the line I was crossing. But I had to know. That night, I caught her, Paige, sneaking in after midnight, her shadow flickering in the camera's grainy feed. She rifled through my files, her movements quick and practiced, like a thief who'd done this before. My heart pounded, a mix of fury and heartbreak. How long had she been playing me? The next evening, I confronted her. The living room felt like a battlefield, the air thick with tension. Paige stood by the window, her silhouette sharp against the city lights, her arms crossed. "What's this about, Miriam?" she asked, her voice smooth, too smooth, like she'd rehearsed it. I held up my phone, the camera footage paused on her guilty hands. "Care to explain this?" I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. She froze, her eyes narrowing, but then she laughed, a sharp, hollow sound that cut through the room. "You're spying on me now? God, you're paranoid." Her words were a blade, twisting deeper with every syllable. I wanted to scream, to shake her, but I held my ground. "I trusted you," I said, my voice breaking. "I gave you everything, and you're stealing from me." She rolled her eyes, stepping closer, her perfume sharp and cloying. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's just a few bucks. You've got plenty." Her dismissal lit a fire in me. I remembered every late shift, every skipped meal, every sacrifice for her. "You think I'm too old to notice?" I shot back, echoing her live stream. Her face paled, just for a second, before she recovered, her smile returning like a mask. "You're overreacting," she said, but her voice wavered. She was cornered, and we both knew it. I stepped closer, my hands shaking but my resolve ironclad. "This ends now, Paige. You don't get to play me anymore." Her eyes darted to the door like she was calculating her escape. The silence stretched, heavy, the ticking of the wall clock deafening. I wanted her to confess, to show remorse, but all I saw was defiance. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could I really outsmart the daughter I'd raised, the one who thought I was too old to fight back? The question hung heavy as I sat in my apartment, the faint smell of rain drifting through the open window. Paige's betrayal, her sly theft, her cruel words, had shattered my trust, but it also woke something in me. I wasn't the frail old woman she thought. I was Miriam Wallace, a nurse who'd faced life-and-death crises, and I wasn't about to let her win. The camera footage of her sneaking through my papers was proof, but proof wasn't enough. I needed a plan, a way to stop her before she took everything. The city lights flickered outside, their cold glow matching the resolve hardening in my chest. It was time to fight back. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm, as I paced the hardwood floor. My hands, still steady from years of suturing wounds, itched to do something. I couldn't confront Paige alone again. She'd twist my words, play the victim. I needed help, someone who'd see through her mask. That's when I thought of Clara, my friend from my nursing days, whose sharp eyes missed nothing. I remembered her warning years ago over coffee in her cluttered kitchen, the steam curling around us like a warm embrace. "Don't let Paige take you for granted," she'd said, her voice firm. "You're too generous, Miriam." I'd brushed it off then, but now her words were a lifeline. I called Clara, and we met at a small cafe the next day. The place smelled of fresh pastries and roasted coffee, the clink of cups and soft jazz creating a cocoon around us. Clara sat across from me, her silver hair catching the light, her gaze steady as I showed her the camera footage on my phone. "She's stealing from you," Clara said, her voice low, angry. "You raised her, and this is how she repays you?" I nodded, my throat tight, the weight of Paige's betrayal sinking deeper. "I need to stop her," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But how?" Clara leaned forward, her hands clasped on the table, the wood cool under my fingertips. "You've got evidence, Miriam. Use it. Get the police involved, but be smart. Document everything." Her words sparked a plan, like a match flaring in the dark. I'd track Paige's moves, gather more proof, and build a case she couldn't dodge. "You're not alone," Clara added, her hand squeezing mine. Her touch was warm, grounding, a reminder that I wasn't fighting this war by myself. Back home, I sat at my desk, the lamplight casting a soft circle over my notes. I started checking my accounts daily, noting every unauthorized withdrawal, no matter how small. The numbers on the screen blurred as my eyes burned, but I kept going, my pen scratching against paper like a battle cry. I installed another camera, this one in my bedroom, hidden in a bookshelf. The device's cold metal felt like a weapon in my hands, a way to reclaim control. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, my nerves frayed, but I pushed through. I was done being her victim. My mind churned with doubts. What if Paige suspected I was onto her? She was clever, always a step ahead on her social media, crafting her perfect image. I pictured her now, smiling for her followers, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. "You're overreacting," she'd said during our confrontation. Her words were playing in my head like a taunt. But I wasn't overreacting. I was waking up. Inside, a voice whispered, "You've faced worse, Miriam. You've saved lives. You can do this." The thought steadied me, like a deep breath before a plunge. Clara and I met again, sketching out the next steps over tea, the porcelain cups warm against my palms. "File a report," she urged, her eyes fierce. "Show them the footage, the bank records. She can't talk her way out of that." I nodded, my heart racing with both fear and hope. The plan was risky. Paige could turn it against me, play the innocent daughter. But I had to try. I'd spent years building a life for her, and I wouldn't let her tear it down. Would my plan be enough to make Paige face the truth, or would she slip away again? The question pulsed through me as I stood in my apartment, the morning sun slicing through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the floor. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the weight of what I was about to do. Paige had stolen from me, mocked me, called me too old to matter. But today I'd show her she was wrong. With Clara's help, I'd gathered evidence, bank records, camera footage, timestamps of her theft. The air smelled of fresh coffee, but it couldn't mask the tension coiling in my chest. This was it, the moment to take back what was mine. I'd spent days preparing, every step deliberate, like prepping for a surgery in my nursing days. My desk was a war zone of papers, printouts of transactions, screenshots from the hidden cameras, each one a brick in the case against Paige. I remembered a night years ago when Paige was 20, curled up on my couch after a bad breakup. The room smelled of chamomile tea, her sobs soft but raw. "You're the only one who's ever there for me," she'd whispered, her voice breaking. I'd held her, promising to always be her rock. Now that memory burned. Had it all been a lie? Clara came over that morning, her presence steadying me. The clink of her keys on the table echoed in the quiet room as she reviewed my evidence. "You've got her, Miriam," she said, her voice firm, her eyes blazing with conviction. "The police will take this seriously." I nodded, my throat tight, the weight of betrayal and resolve warring inside me. We called the authorities, and I handed over the files, my hands steady despite the storm in my heart. The officer's pen scratched against his notepad, the sound sharp and final, like a gavel falling. That afternoon, they executed the search warrant. I stood outside Paige's sleek downtown apartment, the city's hum drowned out by my pounding pulse. The air carried the faint scent of exhaust and rain-soaked pavement, grounding me as police moved inside. I wasn't allowed in, but I pictured it. Officers flipping through her drawers, finding my stolen jewelry, the cash she'd siphoned. My mind flashed to the camera footage, Paige's sly hands rifling through my papers, her face lit by the desk lamp's cold glow. She'd been so sure I wouldn't notice. Then I saw her. Paige stepped out, her face pale, her usual confidence cracked. "Miriam, what's going on?" she called, her voice high, panicked. An officer stood beside her, his expression unreadable. I met her gaze, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "You know exactly what this is, Paige. You thought I was too old to fight back." Her eyes widened, her lips parting, but no words came. For the first time she looked small, caught, no mask to hide behind. Inside they found it all. My mother's ring hidden in a velvet box, bank statements with my account numbers, even a notebook where she jotted down my stock portfolio details. "This is a mistake," she stammered, her voice shaking as an officer read her rights. "Miriam, tell them!" But I didn't. I stood there, the wind cold against my skin, watching as the girl I'd raised faced the consequences of her betrayal. My heart ached, but a weight lifted, like a wound finally stitched shut. "You did this to yourself," I said, my words soft but cutting. She flinched, her eyes darting away, no longer the polished influencer, but a thief exposed. The officer led her to a car, her steps faltering, and I felt a surge of triumph mixed with sorrow. I'd won, but at what cost? The daughter I'd loved was gone, replaced by this stranger. Yet I'd proven I wasn't invisible, not too old to matter. If you're cheering for my victory, smash that like button. What do you think about this moment of justice? Let us know in the comments. What does it mean to reclaim yourself after losing someone you loved like family? The question lingered as I sat by my apartment window, the soft glow of dawn painting the room in hues of gold. Paige's betrayal had shattered me, her words, too old to matter, cutting deeper than I'd admitted. But confronting her, watching the police uncover her theft, had sparked something new. I wasn't just the old woman she'd dismissed. I was Miriam Wallace, a survivor, and I was finding my strength again. The air carried the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the street below, a reminder that life could still hold beauty, even after pain. The morning was quiet, save for the distant hum of the city waking up. My hands, weathered from years of nursing, rested on a photo album, its leather cover worn soft. I opened it, my fingers tracing the edges of a picture from Paige's high school graduation. Her smile was wide, her arm around me, the sun warm on our faces that day. "You're my rock," she'd said, her voice full of promise. The memory stung now, a reminder of the trust I'd lost. But it also reminded me of who I was, a woman who'd built a life from sacrifice, who'd never backed down. I met Clara later that day, in her cozy garden, the air thick with the scent of roses and damp earth. The wooden bench creaked under us as we sat, the sunlight filtering through leaves, dappling her silver hair. "You did it, Miriam," she said, her voice warm but fierce. "You stood up to her." I nodded, my chest tight with a mix of pride and sorrow. "I thought she was my daughter," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I was wrong. I was fighting for me." Clara's hand found mine, her grip steady, grounding. "You're stronger than you know," she said, and for the first time I believed it. That evening, alone in my apartment, I stood before my mirror, the glass reflecting a face lined with years, but alive with purpose. The room was quiet, the only sound the soft tick of the wall clock, a rhythm that felt like my own heartbeat. I wasn't just the woman who'd raised Paige. I was the nurse who'd saved lives, the widow who'd rebuilt after loss, the mother who'd loved fiercely, even when it hurt. Paige's betrayal had tried to dim that light, but it hadn't. It couldn't. Inside, a voice grew louder. "You are enough, Miriam. You always were." I thought of the nights I'd spent doubting myself, replaying her cruel words. The way my hands shook when I found those bank transactions, the cold sweat when I installed those cameras. But I'd faced her, exposed her, and won. Not just my possessions, but my dignity. The sunlight streaming through the window felt like a promise, warming my skin, whispering that I could start again. I wasn't too old to matter, not to myself, not to the world. Clara's words echoed. "You're stronger than you know." I saw it now. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every choice to keep going had built this strength. Paige had tried to take it, but she'd only made me see it clearer. I wasn't done living, not by a long shot. There was still so much I could do, so much I could be. What does it mean to find your worth after someone tries to take it away? I stood in my apartment, the late afternoon sun spilling through the window, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. Paige's betrayal, her theft, her cruel words, had nearly broken me. But I'd fought back, reclaimed my home, my savings, and most importantly, myself. The air carried the faint scent of lavender from my diffuser, a quiet reminder of the peace I'd worked so hard to restore. I was Miriam Wallace, 75, a retired nurse, a mother who'd loved fiercely, and a woman who'd learned she was never too old to matter. This was the end of my story, but also a beginning. The room felt alive, the soft hum of the city outside blending with the steady tick of my wall clock. I sat at my desk, my hands tracing the edges of a laptop, a new addition to my life. After Paige's arrest, I'd enrolled in an online law course, determined to help other women like me, elders dismissed, taken advantage of. The screen glowed softly, its light reflecting in my eyes, a symbol of the future I was building. I remembered a moment from years ago, when I was 60, teaching Paige to drive. The car smelled of leather and summer heat, her laughter filling the air as she swerved too fast. "You're fearless, Miriam," she'd said, her voice full of admiration. That memory, once painful, now reminded me of my own resilience. I met Clara in the park the next day, the grass soft under my feet, the breeze carrying the sweet scent of blooming flowers. We sat on a bench, the wood warm from the sun, and I told her about my course. "You're unstoppable," she said, her smile wide, her eyes crinkling with pride. "Paige thought she could break you, but look at you now." I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in months, light and free. "I'm not just doing this for me," I said, my voice steady. "I want to help others, to show them they're not invisible." Clara nodded, her hand resting on mine, her touch a quiet anchor. Back home, I stood by the window, the city stretching out below, its lights twinkling like stars. I thought of Paige, of the daughter I'd loved, the stranger she'd become. Her words, too old to matter, had once cut deep, but now they were just echoes, powerless against the truth I'd found. I wasn't defined by her betrayal. I was defined by my choices, my strength, my refusal to fade away. Inside, a voice spoke clearly. "You've always been enough, Miriam, and you always will be." The journey hadn't been easy. I'd faced doubt, fear, the ache of losing someone I'd called family, but every step, the cameras, the confrontation, the police, had rebuilt me. I'd learned to trust myself, to fight for myself. The sunlight warmed my face, its glow a promise of new days, new purposes. I wasn't too old to learn, to grow, to matter. No one could take that from me. Don't miss more stories like this. Hit that subscribe button now. If this story moved you, share it with someone who'd love it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.